Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're tuning in right now, you've likely put in a tremendous amount of hard work learning the intricacies of the healthcare system. And now, well, it's time to face that final critical hurdle, your medical billing and coding certification exam. You can think of this explainer as your ultimate blueprint for passing that exam. We're going to break down exactly how to approach your final preparations so you can walk into test day with absolute confidence.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at finding your ideal study space, planning your time to avoid cramming, discovering your personal learning style, going over some course study strategies, and finally, the strict rules for annotating your coding books.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, your ideal study space.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before you crack open a single textbook, you need to ask yourself a really fundamental question. Is your current study space helping you retain information, or is it actually hurting your progress? Believe it or not, your physical environment directly impacts your mental focus.
The very first requirement for success here is clearing your space, and I mean that both physically and mentally. The amount of effort you put into preparing this zone literally determines the level of success you're going to achieve. Now, if all you have is a quiet little nook in the living room, hey, that's perfectly fine, but you have to claim it, and you have to optimize it for pure concentration.
So let's look at the exact criteria for a perfect study zone. First up, sit upright at a desk. Try to avoid curling up in a chair that's so comfortable you might accidentally fall asleep. Second, you need a distraction-free zone. Now, I know some of us like background music, but here's a massive warning. Avoid music that makes you want to sing along. The second you catch yourself noticing the lyrics, your focus is entirely broken. And lastly, keep your essentials close. We're talking a trash can, a ruler, paper, pencils, highlighters. You really shouldn't have to break your concentration just to hunt for basic supplies.
Moving right along to Section 2, plan time, avoid cramming. Let's talk about time management. As you get closer to the big test, modifying your long-term calendar is absolutely essential. You've got to map out the days certain subjects are covered. Pinpoint the exact date of your exam and then just aggressively clear your schedule to avoid conflicts. You have to actively carve out room for this essential study time.
And this brings us to exactly why we need to avoid procrastination. Cramming at the very last minute, it just adds massive stress and results in terrible long-term retention. Now, why does this matter? Well, because memorizing information just to pass a test is not the actual goal here. You need a solid, lasting foundation in anatomy, physiology, and diagnostic codes to actually apply this knowledge on the job. Without retaining this stuff, you won't be able to accurately abstract reports or generate revenue out there in the real world.
Let's jump into Section 3, discover your learning style. Look, everyone has a completely unique approach to studying, and unlocking your specific style changes everything. Are you a visual learner who recalls what they see? If so, lean heavily into visual cues and images to trigger your memory. Or maybe you learn best through auditory tools, absorbing podcasts and recorded lectures while you're commuting. Flashcards remain a totally time-tested method because our brains are wired for quick visual recall. And honestly, even just the simple act of handwriting your notes forces your brain to process the information on a much deeper level. The key is to match your daily habits directly to your specific learning style for maximum efficiency.
Section 4, effective core study strategies.
When you finally sit down with those heavy, dense textbooks, that old saying, "work smarter, not harder," applies perfectly. It is absolutely in your best interest to organize what you need to learn strictly by priority. You have to focus on the most important thoughts and principles first, so you aren't just blindly scrambling through hundreds of pages. Here's a highly effective 4-step process you can use every single day. First, use a ruler while you read. I know it sounds old school, but medical texts are incredibly dense and often use completely alien terminology. Using a ruler tracks your lines perfectly, prevents you from skipping vital info, and actually boosts your reading speed. Second, rewrite the main concepts in your own words. If you can explain it back to yourself, you truly understand it. Third, actively make marginal notes and highlights. And fourth, make it an absolute habit to review past material. Seriously, even just 5 spare minutes to refresh what you learned last week goes an incredibly long way.
Finally, Section 5, annotating coding books responsibly. For this final step, I need to shift to a very serious, strictly instructional tone. So, the crucial point is this. Test proctors will meticulously inspect every single item carried into the testing area. While you are totally allowed to make personal notes and highlight passages, you are strictly prohibited from writing medical definitions or bringing in supplementary notes from other sections of the exam. If your book violates these rules, there's no leeway. The proctor will confiscate it right then and there, and they'll force you to use a blank book provided by them.
Let's look at a very specific example, just to make this crystal clear. If you're taking the section of the test devoted to medical terminology, you absolutely cannot have those definitions written in your CPT or ICD books. For instance, if you write the words measles, mumps, rubella right next to the MMR vaccination code, the testing board actually considers that a prohibited definition. Your book will be flagged. So please be incredibly careful and responsible with how you annotate your resources.
I really hope this explainer has given you the structured blueprint you need to organize your environment, manage your time, and study with total confidence for your certification exam. So, taking a quick look at your calendar right now, what is the very first distraction you are going to eliminate today to protect your study time? Please like, share, and subscribe to Decode Healthcare with Harshal.